Hey, all, welcome to Geek Freaks. I am Frank, and today I'm joined by Annalese and Rob from the Nerd Best Friend podcast. How are you guys both doing today?
I'm great, thank you.
Fantastic, thank you, Frank.
Awesome. All right, so let's start with you, Annalese. Can you break down a little bit of what this podcast is all about?
Sure. The short version is that Rob and I have been best friends for a very long time, for over 30 years. We met in high school. And somewhere along the lines, we were like, let's do a podcast. And Rob's actually done a couple of podcasts in the past, many years ago. And we couldn't quite land on what to do. So we thought, well, we're both nerds. We're best friends. And we like to talk about like very nerdy things all the time. And it's just one of the things that's hinged our friendship is that we play games, we play video games, we hung out and are nerds about stuff and love sharing that with each other. And so the whole premise of our podcast is that you can be nerdy about everything and anything. And we're going to have these conversations that either you wish you could have or you're already having. So that's kind of the premise of our podcast.
Yeah.
That's kind of our tagline is the nerdy conversations you're already having or wish you could, because we always thought, we have professional lives and we've done, we're in education, we're in technology, we're in management, we do all these things. But really when we think about like, oh, what would be like our dream job or our dream scenario, be like, oh, we'd own that comic book game store, cafe, bar, and we'd hang out all the time, talking nerds, having conversations about the new game, the new comic book, the new movie that's coming out and all that kind of stuff. And it's like, well, we're probably not like, that's not the trajectory we went on. So what if we did that virtually, right? Thanks to the internet, we could still just hang out and have those conversations, meet new nerds, meet new people that have those same kind of interests and have those interesting conversations. And so that's it. The idea is you're walking into our, virtual space where you can nerd out about anything.
So Rob just stole my teenage journal where I was talking about my nerd cafe, and it's troubling.
We all want it, right? Does yours also talk about like the lazy like shop dog lying by the door that kind of like lifts its head for everybody?
100%.
Yeah. Name crypto, of course.
Yes.
Yeah. Something like that. Yeah.
All right. We're on the same page.
So Rob, you actually had podcasts before this. Can you kind of touch on what those were and let's transition to a new show?
Sure. I mean, this was back early 2000s. Oh, wow. Yeah, probably about 20 years
Internet
ago.
Radio days when it wasn't even considered podcast at the time yet. Yeah.
Or it was early podcast, actually.
Yeah.
I mean, you had to like download an RSS feed link kind of thing. But my brother and I were very into racing, race cars and NASCAR and stuff like that, because that was the era. It was more popular than ever back in 2000 with, Jeff Gordon and Dale Earnhardt and all that kind of stuff. And we're like, we get together on these Sundays and we, drink beer and watch these races and sit here and talk about it. Let's start recording a podcast. And so we recorded that podcast, the two of us. It was called the Track Smack Podcast because we were talking smack about NASCAR. It was just an excuse really to hang out with my brother-in-law every week and talk about racing kind of thing. And that kind of went nowhere. And then he had kids and he's like, I can't do this editing anymore. And then because I had a little bit of experience with that, I actually did a podcast for the school district that I work for. Oh, nice. And so myself and a colleague, we set up a podcast for the school district all about educational technology, new releases, the idea being like, hey, it's really tough to get professional development to all these teachers. It's, we have all these different places for the community to learn about what's going on in our school district. Let's try a podcast. And so we did that. And for a couple of seasons before COVID hit, and then being in educational technology, when schools shut down and everything had to go digital, we were very busy. And that, that project also ended up dying. But for sure, the Nerd Best Friends podcast has been the most consistent and the longest lasting, and something that we're actually building an audience, right? And we're having those. I mean, we're here today because we're making connections with other nerds and other fields. Everyone that we've met and gotten feedback from has been super cool and super nice. The idea of, the nerd getting bullied like it was when we were kids and where we kind of needed a safe space to talk about this stuff, everybody's got that safe space now. Everybody's talking about this stuff. It seems like, I mean, everybody we come into contact, like you, Frank, has just been super inviting and really cool.
Yeah, that's one of the things that we like about Geek Freaks as well is we always harken back to, early 2000s when Phantom Menace came out, and all we heard about was like, oh, this is a terrible movie, it's terrible, blah blah blah. But for us kids that were our first Star Wars, we were like, I don't know, I thought that was pretty awesome. And then when you grow up, you're like, wait a minute, we all thought it was awesome, we just weren't talking to each other. And so it's nice that now we're not hiding in the band rooms anymore. We can talk to each other about the stuff that we actually do think is cool. And it's nice that like your guys'
Okay, wait.
Yeah, Frank, I was gonna interrupt as well.
What instrument did you play?
I was definitely playing Pokemon cards, but I was in the band room with the other kids. Yeah, I knew where the real cool kids were.
Got it. You were one of the hanger outers.
Exactly.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, we're a couple of trumpet players.
There we go.
And a couple of drum majors, and that's true. That's where you eat your lunch, you hang out, and that's where we were playing Magic the Gathering. That's where we were. Oh, that's where I learned how to play poker. Yeah, that's all that stuff.
Oh god, yeah. If you did my senior year, if you did it right, you played poker like in multiple classes with your same friends, and then eventually by lunchtime you were finishing up the poker game for the day, and it was like that's how you plan a senior year and stuff like that. It's great. Okay, so with your guys' show, you guys founded it in 2021, and I gotta say, I listen to a lot of different podcasts, especially part of the network. You guys have such a well-produced show. With that practice, that's why I was like, oh, okay, Rob's had a podcast in the past. That makes a little sense. You guys got really great transitional music and audio quality. What goes into producing your guys' episode every week?
Before you say anything, Annalese, this is great because when we when we had the conversations about the podcast and when we talked about it, I was a no. I'm like, I've done podcasts before. It's a lot of work. There's so much editing. I don't want to do it, Annalese. So you made the assumption, which made logical sense. I don't do any of it. Annalese does all of the production and post work and editing, and I agree, it's amazing.
Yeah. Sorry, you both are very kind. I mean, I listen to podcasts that my hope is that we're putting out a product that represents who we are. And we are both educators. Right? I'm a high school principal. Rob is district level, chief technology officer. We're both management educators now. Yeah. That whatever we put out should represent us professionally, even though this is not about our professional work. So that's the standard. I pushed this podcast on Rob. I really wanted to do a Buffy podcast. I am a huge fan of Buffy the Vampire Slayer. I was 18 the year Buffy was released. I was in college, and it spoke to me in a way that no other show had spoken to me before. It means a lot to me personally. We were going to do a show about that, but Rob brought up some good points. Like, what do you do once that show's over? Yeah, you could do things that are tangential to it, but at some point it will just naturally have an end. And if we're going to do this, we're going to do this in a way that we can build an audience and just keep doing it as long as we enjoy doing it. And so I learned everything on the fly, how to edit, what tools to use. I did go buy a nice microphone just to make sure that our audio quality was good, but I have found a little bit of a creative output in the editing and have gotten to a point where it's my once a week, it's my Sunday activity. Spend some time with the family, make breakfast. We either record or I am editing. So we alternate, which is also why we're not as timely as we would like because we record ahead of time. We give ourselves a buffer so I have time to edit. But it means a lot to me to produce something or have something out there with my name, our names, and our voices. Yeah. That also just it stands for the high quality that we both learned. Right, we met in that band room, and if one or either of us had decided not to do marching band, we probably would not have become best friends. And so we learned that excellence from our band director at the time. That I think both of us continue to apply those types of excellence lessons in everything we do. You don't get into management without wanting to strive for that excellence. So our podcast should reflect that. So I appreciate the compliments, but it's really just about representing us, who we are, and the fact that being a nerd is okay and it's important. And we still don't like to see kids being bullied because they are nerds about Pokemon or the students at my high school are flabbergasted that I could walk up to them and talk to them about fantasy football, or I could walk up to a group of 9th grade boys who are playing Magic and actually know the things. So embracing all that are in all kids, embracing all of them is a huge part of also just we're nerds and it's okay. We like being nerds. It's awesome being nerds. And that's That's important to me.
I tell people when I'm introducing the podcast,
Yeah.
I always say, like, just start with the most recent episode and go backwards, because I know how good it sounds now. It always sounded good, but like, if you love it now, you'll stick with it when maybe it was a little rough back in season 1. So just listen backwards, so you can jump around with that. But yeah, Annalise does an amazing job with our podcast. I even remember calling her one day around the end of season 2. I was listening to the podcast in the car along my list, because it was a long drive, so a lot of podcasts played, and ours was kind of in the middle of it. And I called her. I said, "You know what? I think our podcast is good." Like, I was listening to these other ones, and I'm like, ours was better than some of them. We're doing something here. Good job.
Genuine surprise there by him. We're actually okay.
Yeah. You guys it's a great show, and it's very conversational. And you're bringing up a great point with you guys being educators. I'm wondering, have you guys seen a difference between how people celebrate fandom from when you guys were kids to nowadays, seeing kids being geeks and nerds alike?
Oh, 100%. I mean, my school has a D&D club and a club for just about anything you can imagine, right? And I can't imagine. I tried to be in chess club when we were in high school, and I was one of one who wanted to be in chess club. But now it's a thing, right? It's much more embraced. And when I talk about the podcast with people, I tell them, like, you can be a nerd about anything. If you love Dr. Pepper or you love Pepsi, you could go on to social media and find a fan group of that thing and just nerd out with those people. And that's what's behind our show. And I love seeing it from kids. I have students from my school that listen to our podcast because they're also nerds, and they love it. So, yeah.
I would say the biggest difference with that from when I was a kid is like Annalise said, it's the internet. When we were kids, it was like, it's kind of the same. Who were the influencers then, right? Who was the cool nerd that brought Magic the Gathering to the band room the first time? Who was the cool nerd that told me, "Oh, I'm reading this new Transformers comic and it's really different than the cartoon and you're going to love it." It was more word of mouth, right? So we had to have that, or going to the store and just figuring out, like, oh, they put something new on the end cap. I guess, like, I'll try that out. There wasn't this idea of like, oh, I'm thinking of something. I have a computer in my pocket. I'll just pull it out. And all of a sudden there's a wiki page, there's a fan group, there's a podcast, there's 13,000 YouTube channels about it, all of that kind of thing. So you can really get so much more information now, which makes it difficult in some ways because we can't spread our time everywhere. But also, there's, like Annalise said, there's always a group for you in whatever it is that you find is cool. You can find another group of people because of where we are with the internet now.
Well, it's nice to hear kind of a positive effect of the internet on the kids, because I think a lot of us, always hear the doom scrolling, the bad news side of it. So is the internet helping in creating communities for kids where they can find a home? Is that more of a positive than we're seeing out of the negatives?
I mean,
if it bleeds,
I think
about this a lot.
It bleeds, right? We're only going to hear about the negative effects, and there are some. I do think one of the most important lessons we can teach adolescents is how the algorithms work. You click on something, and then you're going to get fed just that voice, and it's an echo chamber because they're trying to feed you the things you want and then sell you things that they think you need. They being the operative term there. But if teenagers are allowed the time to understand that, then the impact of it is not as great as we would think. And technology is going to be a battle forever in education, but the ability to connect, I think, is important. We're almost, I think, if I may, Rob, he has described it at times of like when we were in high school, it's almost parallel to coming out, right? You come out as a D&D nerd, and you're careful to make sure, is this person safe for me to let them know and ask them if they play D&D, and that stigma is gone. So it's a yes and. There's still the not so great sides of social media and how it feeds algorithms. And Rob may have a different answer of experience there.
Yeah, when I get this question and get it a lot, because sometimes I have to defend internet in front of students and things. Really, what it comes down to is we have been poor stewards of the internet, specifically Web 2.0 with social media and things. We, as parents, as educators, as adults, we got that effect too. Social media and the internet does such a good job with dopamine and modeling it after casino machines and things. Like, we're constantly scrolling too. We're constantly in front of that screen too. And we know that, children look at adults and emulate them. And we also didn't understand, because of the rapid nature of technology growth, that, hey, all of a sudden we're looking around and seeing like we're spending a real long time on these screens. And I think we did before. There were definitely kids that would go home and just plop themselves down in front of the TV after school from 3 o'clock in the afternoon to 9 o'clock at night and kind of zombie out. And there was concern about that even when I was a kid, of like, how much time are you sitting in front of the TV? And now that TV is with us always, during the school day, the work day, after work, middle of the night. It's always there. So, like Annalise said, educating, understanding how these things work, right? If you're getting entertainment for free, like, guess what? Like, you're the product, and those kinds of things. So, educating and being aware of it. But on the positive side, and I'm definitely an internet optimist, I think the internet is the most incredible achievement of mankind since the first campfire. You have a community, right? Anecdotally, as an example, when schools shut down and things, were all, tight during the COVID pandemic, my son was okay because he had a group of friends that would all jump on Discord and play video games together.
Right.
And I would overhear them in the living room. They weren't just talking about the video game. They were talking about life. They were talking about what was going on. They were talking about different friends. They were having the normal conversations. It's just that they couldn't be in the same room. So the internet gave them a tool where they could still be kids. Same thing with us, like, nerd wise. I'm a huge D&D player. I've run D&D games since I was in high school. It's a huge hobby for me, and it's one of those hobbies where if I play D&D every week, it's like, yeah, it's a Dungeons and Dragons game, but really what it was a dinner with a group of friends and conversations we would have in and around the game. It was connection and community that I was building that not a lot of adults have, right? And it's like, yeah, we framed it around this nerdy thing, but really, it turns out I was a pretty healthy and well-adjusted adult because I would spend time every week with friends. And then when that shut down, I started getting all these requests. Can we start an online game? Can we start an online game? Can we play D&D? I hear people are doing it on Zoom, or they're doing it on Discord, or there's these digital tools now. And so we said, oh, okay, sure. And we started this game with like 8 people in it, and we played it every week and for years. And it was a very special time, and it was made possible because we had the internet tools, we had the community, available to us, and it became a really special time, to the point where, and this would be an episode to check out. We played a campaign of Dungeons and Dragons from 1st to 20th level. We played almost every week for 4 years to get there.
Yeah.
And our final adventure, where we fought the big boss and did the whole thing, we also decided, let's do it in person. And so from all over California and different parts of the country, everybody, we came to Vegas, and we rented event space, and we played that game there. And it was the first time we had all been in the same room, in the same place. It was the first time some people had ever met that person in person. And there were tears, and it just felt so special and all this stuff. And so when I talk about the internet is great, those are the moments that I'm grabbing, as far as like, no, this is really a powerful tool that connects people as much as it can isolate people as well.
Yeah, this is such a good conversation. And it reminds me, like, right now, matter of fact, I do have, I'm the DM for my campaign, and one of our players is about to have a child. And so it's like, needs to go virtual, guys, because there's no way I'm gonna be able to get away for the next couple of months. And it's like, all right, luckily D&D Beyond, I've been subbed since 2020 when they were free for about a year or whatever. So it's like, let's make that transition. But for my case in this situation, it's BlizzCon and these different conventions where we get to meet our friends in person. And it's such a really cool way to see how the real world and online communities can blend. And even for some of us, a little bit older guys, we're losing those like third places where you used to like go to the bar with your friends kind of thing. That's not necessarily gone. It's just changed what it looks like, and it's Discord, and so that we have a little more time with our family, but also we can escape for a second and have those third places online. And even with podcasting, I think there's something there where you normally have a long conversation with your friends, and sometimes you just don't have access to that anymore. But that ride to work could become that when you're listening to, nerd best friend podcasts and stuff like that. It's like you're in the conversation with them. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what we're hoping. I know sometimes we'll hear from listeners like, I was screaming at you in the car while I was driving over because you forgot to say this. I'm like, yeah, that there is this kind of intimate nature of, if you're on a walk or you're in the car or whatever, and we're talking in your ear, we are your nerd best friends.
Yeah.
Right. And we definitely welcome that.
Yeah.
I do want to go back though. What are you running? You running a campaign, doing homebrew? What's your
little bit of both. Like I'll take a book and I'll be like, oh, I like this element, I like that element. Like right now we're going, I can't remember the name of the book, but it's where Baldur's Gate, the town outside of Baldur's Gate, goes sunk into hell. And so I'm basically using parts of that.
Avernus. Descent into Avernus.
Yes. So I'm using parts of that right now. They just kind of like got a foothold in hell, and I'm letting them break into it and stuff. And so our first online campaign will be very interesting to see how that works out with this. Our first online session, I mean. So it's been interesting. I got the whole 3D printer and stuff for it.
Yes, that's what I was gonna say. Like when you do your in-person games, are you minis and 3D printing dungeons and all that kind of stuff?
Oh yeah, I'm the single guy of the group. That's obviously with a room like this. You mean you're single guy of the group. So I literally have like my dining table has a TV built into it where we put the maps, and we have I do all the minis and stuff. So I go hardcore on it.
Well, you're going to get a break, I think, because the cool thing about Descended to Avernus is it's got this whole like Mad Max atmosphere where you get like siege engines and motorcycles and stuff like that. And there aren't miniatures for it. Like we were looking at having to do a lot of conversions and stuff when we started going through that game. That game ended. We were playing that it was a really cool idea. It was a father-son's D&D group where there were like 4 of us families that were all dads and sons, and we were playing this D&D group together. It was really cool, but just so hard to organize, especially as the kids got to high school and they all were doing different things. It fell apart like right before we got to the really cool stuff in Avernus. That one ended, but I was already looking ahead, like I'm gonna have to like buy Games Workshop orc miniatures and convert them and make them look like fantasy things, and I had some plans, but going digital, that might be just the right time where you can just grab an image and slide it over into the map, right?
Yeah, a little more affordable. But it is a great example of how things are different with the father and son thing. If you look back at like the 90s, I just listened to your guys' 95 episodes, so I'm all 90s a buzz right now.
Right on.
But I mean, I don't think that was very common for fathers and sons to play together. And I think that is something too, that nowadays there's a little bit more of a bridge between the ages and the generations.
I mean, definitely. I did not grow up in a family of people who played games, right? I think we played like Monopoly and Sorry and those typical games. And we were children of the 80s, so we had some of those games. I know my parents had the Dark Tower, which we weren't allowed to touch because it was a scary game, which we did anyways when with my older brother when they were gone. They left him to watch us, and we'd sneak out that game. But after that, once I hit adolescence and I'm reading Stephen King and want to get all these horror things, I did not get into D&D. I did not get into Magic. And some of that was because I grew up very poor. So I would watch Rob and all of our friends play Magic, but I didn't really have the money to go out and buy the decks. So those barriers with more adults playing tabletop games with their kids, I think is magical. I love seeing on Facebook communities where like, oh, I introduced my son to this game and and I think it's really cool, and it allows the kids to know like you can be. It comes back to that, right? You can be nerdy about these things, and it's okay because we can be nerdy together.
Yeah, I've got a nephew who's just getting into Spider-Man, and I'm like trying to like be real careful about like not getting too overboard. But I'm like, let me know. I've got 10 years of comic books and everything.
I'm ready for you. I'm ready for you.
We'll start small though.
Same thing. I've got a nephew who's 8 or 9, and he's like very Dungeons and Dragons curious. And it's that same thing. It's like, I could give this kid 50 books, but that's going to make it seem like a chore. So how do I make it fun? And come over to Uncle's house and we'll do the thing. I had a great relationship with my dad, and my dad was also a hobbyist. So I still take a lot of things that I learned from him. He did remote control cars. He did remote control airplanes. and he did trains. And when you are a train person,
Yeah.
you build your train layout and you're making mountains and you've got the flock and the little trees and the little people and all that stuff. And I learned a lot about like the stuff I do now with my Dungeons and Dragons trainer, my war game terrain, and like my miniatures, and I base them and all this kind of stuff is because like that just seemed totally normal. We'd go to the hobby shop and get all this stuff and whatever. But we definitely didn't. It didn't follow like as I got into high school with my friends and we were playing D&D and we were playing Magic and we were reading comic books. Dad still stuck to his hobbies as well, right? So I had that hobby background and we would still do things in that space. But yeah, it wasn't a thing to like, oh yeah, Dad's gonna sit down and play with me, for these like imagination games. That just wasn't how it was. Now I have a son, he's 16, and since he was little, we've also been nerd best friends as we go through because he likes those same kind of things, right? He luckily like his hobbies are also comic books and playing D&D and role playing and those kinds of things. But I expect at some point that'll probably, he'll find his own thing as well.
It just feels like it was easier back then. If you think about like building trains, there is world building in that. And it's like you're just so close to it. So let me just show you what you can do world build over here. I'll put a train in the middle of whatever. Yeah, it delivers over to Boulder's Gate. Sure. That's fine. We'll figure out a system. Artificer made it. Sure.
Right. But then it was magazines, right? It was, I remember like RC magazine would come to the house and like these train magazines would come to the house. So they're looking at, and I bet looking back at it, like 3 doors down, there was probably a dude all into like historical war games and who was also building these giant tables and doing all this stuff and getting the same magazine with just a different title on it. Like, here's how you build mountains and bushes for your diorama.
Yeah. It reminds me too of the old days. I don't know if it comes out anymore, but man, it was so magical back in the day. Popular Mechanics magazine was like the mechanics version of like, it's sci-fi, guys. It's so cool that you guys are into sci-fi. You guys just don't know it. And so you guys are seeing cool stuff, but it's Star Trek. Awesome. But yeah, obviously you guys have a wide breadth of fandoms under your belt. How do you choose topics for you guys' show?
Well, we do a planning meeting at the beginning of each season, and we base it off of the things we did first season. So every season we do an episode that's centric around a superhero. Mm-hmm. Every season we do one that's centric around a television series, and we tend to try to pick ones that are older and are finished. So we're not talking about one that's still evolving. We have our 30s episode that you had mentioned you just listened to, where we talk about all the things from 30 years ago to the year. We have our nerd goal setting. It changes every year. There's 25 for 2025, which we talk about how we set our nerd goals. And what is another one? We have the what are you doing episode, which is really just a catch-all to talk about all the nerdy things. What am I missing?
And then we bring in other people. So we'll do kind of cross-promotional things like this, but we also have had nerd careers where when we can get a chance to have someone in who's got, an interesting career that's related to our nerd things. That's really cool. We've had cosplay winners. We've had pinball champions. We've had CGI artists. And that I've learned so much from those folks about the different niches of all these nerdy things. Gosh, that pinball one, I keep going. Was it Nancy? Was her name? And she's like, oh yeah, I like to talk about pinball. And then she goes, but really I nerd out about, and she kind of goes to her room and she's like got gigantic Lego sets and all these things. She has these wild like Japanese paint by number things and she's doing it like, whoa, this person's amazing. So those we really enjoy as well. But yeah, like just going through the season and we kind of have our standards and then, all right, what's interesting coming up this year? Who can we find to fill in the rest?
And we leave some open for when we, inevitably meet somebody who has something cool that we want to bring to the show. And we just want to celebrate all nerds. And so we do leave some open and there's some question marks and we leave room for Rob's son to maybe pick a topic for us and have him come on the show once a season or twice a season. But yeah, we really just try to celebrate everything and connect with people.
Part of celebrating the fandoms too, you guys engage a lot with your audience. Is there any time when you guys are pulling from your audience to create episodes, and how does that reaction or interaction with your guys' audience work?
Well, we definitely have our nerd mail segment
Mhm.
that we ask people to write in, and we'll read them mail and answer questions. Or a lot of the time, it's correction. Like, hey, you guys actually, Rob, I forgot to
actually.
mention I forgot to send in one of the nerd mails that we got about Nintendo and Sony and why the Sony PlayStation came to place. But we'll put it on next episode. So that's how one way we really interact with fans. And then we have a segment at the end of the show that we ask each other, what's the nerdiest thing we did this week? And while that's not as fan interactive, we have heard from listeners to say, like, now they do that at their dinner table with their kids. And it's something that's in their family's conversations. What's the nerdiest thing you did today at school? And so those were two ways. Am I missing anything, Rob? Anything you have to add to that?
No, honestly, I would. So we also have a Patreon, right, for our super fans to help us with some of the costs of the podcast and things like that. And I always say, if a patron says, hey, why don't you guys do an episode about this? We'll definitely do that episode because you're paying us. You're our boss. So if you want to see something, put it on there and we'll drop everything and we'll do it.
Yeah, we call ours the executive producers. And so it's like, sure thing, boss.
Exactly right. There you go.
Yeah. So obviously you guys listening at home, clearly a very friendly and welcoming place to celebrate different fandoms and nerdoms and stuff like that. So you guys got to make sure to check out Nerd Best Friend Podcast. It's excellent. All the links in the description. And I'd like to wrap things up with 3 questions for you guys, little fun ones to kind of end the day with. First off, if you could live in any fictional universe, which one would you want to choose and why?
Ooh.
Well, because sometimes we think about things like this, and whenever I start thinking about it, I'm like, well, the reason we're hearing stories about these fictional universes is usually they're very dangerous. And that's where well, do I want to live in a world where a dragon could come and just like tear down my home? Probably not. Do I want to live in a world where there's like this oppressive trade federation who's causing all this problem and the rebellion has to rise up? Probably not. You know,
do I want to live in Sunnydale where they talk about the mortality rate of the senior class? And maybe not.
Superman's awesome. Metropolis, not so much.
Right, exactly.
Same, oh my gosh, like Marvel Universe New York City is the most dangerous place in the ever invented.
Oh, that's a good. And then I read a lot of Stephen King. So like, again, that's another, I don't know that I want to live in any of those universes.
The Maine looks beautiful, but there's a lot of clowns I do not want to talk to.
Oh yeah.
Gosh. You read H.P. Lovecraft? You don't want to be anywhere near the Northeast.
Right. Yeah.
It's such a good question.
I know, like,
it's tricky. Yeah.
I feel like Pokemon universe is pretty cool because there's wild monsters all over the place, but they don't seem very dangerous. Everybody who just lives in the different towns that you travel through in Pokemon, they're all just doing their thing and having regular lives. But if you wander out off the path, you're going to get encountered by something dangerous. But also you could go and you can see all these cool monsters and stuff. There's probably an answer that I'll come up with like in the shower tomorrow that's going to be even better, but I'm going to go with Pokemon right now.
I love it.
I'll say post Voldemort era, I would love to own like a pub or a little shop in Diagon Alley.
Yeah. Harry Potter to me is a good one because it's like, if you're a muggle, you don't even know it's there. It's just, and it's the late 90s, perfect time. Like, you can't go wrong with the late 90s anyways. And then, if you do know about it, it's magical. It's cool. For the most part, you don't know about Voldemort. There it is. I'm a little bit too old to like really know a lot of Harry Potter stuff, but yeah. Our next question is, if you could instantly master any fictional skill, lightsaber, wizardry, stuff like that, what skill would you choose?
I'm gonna go with something Rob's mentioned before. So in the 80s, there was this television show called Out of This World, and the superpower from the protagonist in this show was that she could freeze time by pushing her 2 fingers together.
Oh, yeah. I remember.
And she could also unfreeze people by touching them. So I think about this a lot. I know Rob does. This is one of his standard answers. But if I could have that fictional ability to freeze time and then like take a nap or just get all my work done. So when I unfreeze time, it looks like I'm this amazing genius that knows how to do work very fast. But the gift of time is a thing. Like, let me freeze time and stop and work out and work my stress out a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, that would be very powerful. If I like, for me, it's not even a fictional skill. It's more of a superpower. But if I could have that skill or that power, that would be it.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's a superpower. So I'm really drilling down on skills, and I've got two. One would be like fictional driving skills, like
great
speed
pick.
racer, like Knight Rider, like I can make a car go on two wheels, I can slide 360 into a parking spot perfectly, like those kinds of skills, like fictional driving skills sounds really, really fun.
Mm-hmm.
But then also like fictional like kung fu hand-to-hand skills sounds really awesome too, because yeah, but then it's like which begets which. Like if you have awesome, cool, fun kung fu skills, does violence just find you, or do I have these cool fictional kung fu skills and they just lie dormant until something happens, and then I absolutely obliterate somebody with my lightning fast hands, and now from then on everybody knows Rob's that guy. Don't mess with Rob. Like I'm just standing tall, walking down the street, like nobody's gonna touch me. I got crazy kung fu hands. I don't know. So one's more dangerous and one's more fun. So either fictional driving skills or awesome fictional kung fu hand-to-hand combat skills.
Yeah. I love it. Yeah, you never know when it's going to become useful, and all of a sudden you're the hero of the day. But then all of a sudden you're known for it, so people are going to expect it out of you. So it's that double-edged sword.
Right? They're going to come challenge me.
They're going to come after you.
All right. Lastly, if you were a superhero, what would be your unique power? So we're going to go to the power one here. And how would you use it in a mundane, everyday way? I'll start off with this one while you guys cook. Yeah, because I know you're going to have to think of a second one now. For me, it's always like super strength. People are always like, oh, super strength's great. Like, that's a good one to pick, because then when your friend's asking you to move, you can actually like do it and not break a sweat. Because I always hate that. Like, I love my friends, but when they're like, hey, you want to help me move next week? I'm like, oh my God, and you live upstairs. This could be the worst. If you have super strength, it's not a problem. Like, yeah, I'll take care of the couch. So I'll choose super strength. I think mundane one, that would be pretty nice to have. Yeah. All right, what do we got?
Okay, I've got two in mind, so I'll let Annalese go first because we're so alike. She's probably going to steal one of them.
We might have the same one. I mean, very simply, just the power of flight.
Yeah,
just to be able to travel around. I mean, if we went with Superman, kind of Supergirl, like the super speed, either to get someplace really fast or just to not have to get in a car and drive. If I could just, fly somewhere and get there quickly, that would be really cool.
Even just to work every time.
Yeah. All of that. Yes. And not have to pay airline fees when I want to travel. Like, yeah.
Yeah. Weekend vacations is nice and easy. Like, I'm just going to go to the mountains for a day or whatever. You just fly right over. Yeah. That's the way to do it. What do we got, Rob?
So nobly, like the answer I'm supposed to give is I wish I had healing powers so that I could help people. But in reality, I don't really like caregiving, and I don't really like hanging out with sick or old people. So I'm not going to go with that one.
It's great.
Jerk best friends.
What I'm actually going to go with is invulnerability, or even if I was like somewhat vulnerable, but didn't have to feel the pain, because there's a lot of things in life that because they're going to hurt, I don't do. Like, for instance, like I have zero tattoos because I have zero interest in paying someone to make me hurt. I'm also like not as fit as I would like to be because I know that like running is going to make my shins, knees, and head hurt. Like, I don't want to do that because it's going to hurt. Like, all of these kinds of things. It's like, I find that my lizard brain as a human being is like, is that going to hurt? Dan, don't do it. Right. Constant state of of happiness and relaxation is always my goal, and not the things maybe I should be doing or could be cool because that might hurt. So I'm going to go with invulnerability. I think it would change my life, my whole outlook.
Do all the things.
That's such a good pick. I like the idea of like, because I don't try things, like that's such a good idea. I don't think about that, but that's 100% there. All right, guys. So you guys got to make sure to tune into this podcast, Nerd Best Friends. All the links in the description. You guys are going to be talking about D&D. We talked about D&D here. It sounds like there's a lot of passion there. So if you want to share that passion, make sure you check out the podcast. And recently you guys did remakes and reboots, which is one of those things that, like, for us who live on nostalgia, oh boy, that could spark an entire conversation. So get in on the conversation, guys. Again, all the links in the description. Annalese, Rob, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thanks for having us. This was so cool.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Frank. I really appreciate it. This has been super fun.
We're also equally fans of the clips we see on social media of your show and listen to all the things because we are also geeks and freaks.
Yeah, there we go. All those clips. Oh, God, talk about editing taking too long. It's right there. You're more marketer than
man. You guys are on it. We love it. It's
all
there.
Right. I appreciate it. All right, guys. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you guys in the next one. Bye.